Subscribe for daily boxing videos, guys. We're not that far away from Luis Ortiz versus Deontay Wilder, guys. We're not that far at all. Matter of fact, we're about a week and a half, maybe even less than that. But a little over a week before Deontay Wilder faces Luis Ortiz. A lot of people are excited for this fight. You know, I talked a lot of basically shit leading up to this fight. Talked a lot of things that pissed people off. Said things like Luis Ortiz was a cherry-picked fight for Deontay Wilder. Said things like Luis Ortiz is slow. Said things like this is an easy fight for Wilder. Pissed off a bunch of boxing fans. You know, I pissed off Deontay Wilder fans because they felt like I wasn't giving him credit for the Luis Ortiz fight. And it pissed off Luis Ortiz fans because they felt like I was not giving Luis Ortiz enough credit for being an undefeated fighter. So, you know, despite the fact that I pissed a lot of these boxing fans off intentionally, because, you know, everything I say on my channel is intentionally. I don't just say it to say it. I say it, you know, if I want to basically excite boxing fans or just get them a little wild, you know, rattled, basically. And it's very easy to get a boxing fan rattled. You just have to say something about their favorite fighter. And for some reason, you know, a lot of Deontay Wilder fans are subscribed to my channel because they love leaving me comments telling me how disgusted they are when I criticize Wilder. But at the end of the day, I'm actually excited for this fight. I'm excited for this fight. I think this fight is a decent fight. I don't think it's the greatest fight, but I think it's a decent fight. I think this fight is definitely better than Bermane Stiverne, that's for sure. I think this fight is definitely better than, you know, Chris Arreola, that's for sure. I like to look at social media a lot when fighters are set to fight because I like to see the opinions of boxing fans. And because boxing fans, they be leaving comments not just on, like, you know, YouTube videos, but like on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook. So I like to sit down and look at these comments and read these comments to see the who's going to, in fact, knock out Deontay Wilder. Now, despite the fact that I'm picking Deontay Wilder to knock out Luis Ortiz, I was like thinking about this fight stylistically. And I was just like really thinking about it and how I think this fight will play out. And, you know, the more I think about it, the more I think about it, the more I think this fight will likely be a stinker. And what I mean by that is, like, a lot of people are thinking like this is going to be an exciting fight because they think, okay, Wilder's a big puncher. Luis Ortiz is the best opponent that Deontay Wilder's ever fought, right? Supposedly, right? Luis Ortiz is the best opponent that Deontay Wilder's ever stepped in the ring with. So they're thinking, okay, Wilder's being the big puncher, Luis Ortiz being the technical boxing genius that people think he is. This is going to be a good fight. Or someone's going to get knocked out. But I think the reason I think this is going to be a stinker is because one thing I noticed with Deontay Wilder is whenever Deontay Wilder's in there with somebody who's a better talent than, if you look at the first 5 rounds of that fight, Wilder wasn't letting his hands go. Angles, his showing hands go, you know, even the standard technical boxing ability. He tends to not throw his hands enough. When Wilder's in there with a guy who is technical, Wilder tends to not let his hands go to him, who was throwing a jab in his face, who was countering him, and Wilder was afraid to make a mistake, let his hands go, and get countered. And he was just waiting for that one big shot. And if you look at, like I said, look at the first 5 rounds of Deontay Wilder versus Gerard Washington. Wilder was not letting his hands go at all. He was too afraid because he knew he was going to get countered against Gerard Washington. But eventually, he landed that right hand, because he seems to always land it, and he knocked out Gerard Washington. When Deontay Wilder fought Arthur Spilka was moving against Deontay Wilder. He was a shorter heavyweight than Wilder, but he was moving. He wasn't standing in front of Deontay Wilder. He was kind of like moving like an in and out type of style. He would come in, throw a bunch of combinations, and then he would jump out. And if you look at Deontay Wilder, Wilder wasn't letting his hands go a lot. Wilder looked like he was confused in there. There were times in there where Wilder would throw a punch and he'll literally fall, you know, on his knees. Because by the time he'll throw the punch, Arthur Spilka with his foot speed would be like across, like, you know, like halfway across the ring. And if you notice, that fight went like 9 rounds. So when Wilder's in there with a guy who's moving and with a guy who's technical with him, he tends to not let his hands go enough. Now, Luis Ortiz is nowhere near as fast as Arthur Spilka in terms of foot speed. I think Arthur Spilka is very fast for a heavyweight. Luis Ortiz is not like that in terms of foot speed, but he is a technical boxer. And Luis Ortiz, this is why I think it's going to be a stinker, because I think what's going to happen is you're going to see Deontay Wilder being cautious, not letting his hands go enough, and giving away rounds, especially in the early rounds. He's going to be giving away rounds because, like I said earlier, whenever he's in there with somebody who's technically better than him, he does not let his hands go. It's almost like he just waits for a one opportunity to land that bomb, that big right hand. So because he takes his time to try and land that right hand and to not get countered himself, he gives away the rounds. So I think because Luis Ortiz is going to be technical in there with him, I think you're going to see Wilder give away several rounds. And because Luis Ortiz, this is why I think it's going to be a stinker, because Luis Ortiz is a veteran, because he's 39, so he's a veteran. Because he's a veteran, because, you know, he has a lot of experience, and because he knows that Wilder is, Luis Ortiz knows that Wilder is just trying to land that big right hand on him. He knows this. Luis Ortiz is a guy that has been in the amateur since his whole life, you know, since he was a child, right? So he knows Deontay Wilder's style. He knows that Deontay Wilder is trying to land that big right hand on his face. So he knows that he has to be careful, because he knows if he isn't careful and if he gives Wilder the opportunity, guess what? Wilder might land that right hand and it's over. Luis Ortiz doesn't want to get knocked out against Wilder. So because, now if Luis Ortiz was a young fighter, he wouldn't be thinking about this. He'll just be thinking, okay, Deontay Wilder is, you know, he don't have my skill set. So therefore he's going to be taking risks, right? If Luis Ortiz was a young Cuban fighter, he'll be thinking to himself, I'm going to be taking risk. I'm going to be taking risk because Deontay Wilder, he can't compete with me skill for skill. So he's going to be taking risks, and then he'll get knocked out, right? But because Luis Ortiz is a veteran, because he knows what Wilder's trying to do, because he's been there, he's done that, he's not going to be taking risks. I'm telling you right now, Luis Ortiz is not going to be taking risks. He's just going to stay technical. He's not going to, you know, go guns blazing. He's going to just stay technical. He's going to stay technical, and he's going to stay technical. So what you're going to see is you're going to see Luis Ortiz staying technical, winning rounds against Deontay Wilder, and you're going to see Deontay Wilder not letting his hands go enough because he doesn't want to get countered by Luis Ortiz, and he's just trying to land that right hand. And before you know it, it's probably going to be rounds 8, round 9, and maybe Wilder's going to be down 5 rounds to 4. And then the fight might end up going the distance, and Luis Ortiz will then get robbed, maybe, and then it'll be a big controversy that there'll be many Luis Ortiz fans saying Wilder got robbed. I mean, Luis Ortiz got robbed. Or there'll be a possibility where Luis Ortiz gasses out in the second half of the fight, and he gets lazy and he gets tired because of age, because of endurance, because it's round, you know, 10, 11, 12. And then Wilder will eventually catch him with that right hand. But I have a big feeling that this is not going to be a blowout. I don't think Wilder's just going to go in here and knock out Luis Ortiz in 2 rounds. And I definitely don't think Luis Ortiz is going to go in here and knock out Deontay Wilder out in 1 round. I think it's going to be a very technical fight, and I think it's going to be a stinker. And I think we're going to be left disappointed as boxing fans. I think going into this fight, we're all going to be excited. we're all gonna be, you know, oh, I want to see Wilder knock out Luis Ortiz, or I want to see Luis Ortiz, you know, chin Wilder. But I think we're gonna be left disappointed. I think we're gonna be left disappointed because the fact that Wilder's a cautious fighter when he's in there with somebody who's technically better than him, and because Luis Ortiz is a veteran and he's not gonna make mistakes. So I think we're gonna be left disappointed. Again, these aren't facts. This is just my opinions, guys. Anyway, guys, that's all I have to say. If you watched the videos from start to finish, as always,